Dom and Dan are now right on the same page, exactly the same when it comes to schools and going back and not being shut down when it comes to COVID. Unlike Queensland, and I have not discussed this all year, it is a disgrace. Wow, I almost used the word I wanted to. That they're delaying school by 2 weeks. And if you want to know if the teachers' union aren't the one actually in charge of everything in Queensland, when they tried to extend the term by 1 week, teachers' union said, no. Like garbage, all right? Yeah. All kids have to go back to school. The Prime Minister was saying that, and many of the premiers were the first time around. Then we got Delta. Now we're in Omicron. Nick, it has been interesting to watch that even Daniel Andrews is being asked questions about how kooky is Mark McGowan suggesting that you're in lockdown right now?
Yes, they're locked behind the iron ore curtain over there in WA, aren't they? And with 24 cases today, and as us in the eastern states know, it is a very, very hard jack-in-the-box to put back in the box once it gets out. So I think Mark McGowan has some difficult weeks in front of him there. Having said all that, I say that from coming to you from Melbourne tonight, and I know that notwithstanding the much flagellation by the people on the eastern coast, most people in Western Australia are still pretty happy inside the gilded cage.
It is interesting, but I think the interesting thing about the and full credit to Daniel Andrews to coming around and finally being sensible about this whole thing, but it is interesting that New South Wales and Victoria got to exactly the same place by doing almost diametrically opposite things, and we have not seen the hashtag Let It Rip Dan. We have not seen the hashtag I stand with Dom. We were told that that the New South Wales government let the Delta variant out of the box, and and it was our fault for not locking down and cracking down hard and fast enough. Dan Andrews did exactly that. Same result. And again, we were told that Dom Perrottet was just letting it rip and letting Omicron, go crazy because he didn't force everyone to wear masks for about 3 days in December. And of course, the Victorian government had no such easy restrictions. And again, what happened? The exact same result. And so you're getting to a position where Victoria and New South Wales, again, are in almost identical positions. It's amazing how similarly they're tracking, and they're both committed to going back to school, and that is fantastic, full credit. But think about the amount of pain and lockdown that Victoria has been through to get to this position compared to what New South Wales has. And that is all you need to know about the eliminationist or eradication approach compared to the more reasonable suppression approach.
Well, Chris, again, to everyone who did the same, you were the little sort of torch of truth throughout summer, and I know you talked about it about Palaszczuk, but that is a disgrace that people in Queensland, their kids don't go back, not for 1, but for 2 weeks, and when they wanted to extend the school year, union says no.
Yeah. As soon as the union breathes or voices any kind of opposition to what the government does, Palaszczuk bends over and makes sure that they get their way, and that's what's happened. You got it right. A little less of that now with a Liberal government in New South Wales, and I'm glad Dan Andrews repelled any kind of opposition in Victoria, because that could have gone the same way as Queensland. But it is a disgrace. This business about, but we're going to have a whole community full of, COVID-19. Well, you just go down the path that we know we need to adopt, which is the rat tests, the rat kits, and we go down and make sure that we've got them well and truly stocked, and we divide the kids into classes and probably keep them that way when it comes to recess and lunchtime. That's what they're doing in New South Wales and Victoria. There are ways around this, but of course Palaszczuk, and to a much greater degree Mark McGowan, just takes the easy option, and the easy option is to stop it. We just won't do it. That's easy. And I can't work out how to do it.
And the actual more disgraceful thing, and Queensland has been absolutely appalling in this, and it's ironic that Palaszczuk initially said she was going to keep schools open, and then the union had a little stop work meeting and suddenly they were shut along with the rest of the eastern seaboard. But the reason that they've cited for shutting down schools, as spurious and baseless as it is that is when their wave of Omicron is predicted to peak, so when schools return. Whereas in Victoria and New South Wales, we're already coming down and have been for at least a couple of weeks. They're just peaking at the end of January. And why are they just peaking? Because the same government tried to keep it out. The same government was demanding PCR tests to enter the state and causing huge amounts of shortages, huge backlogs, huge queues that made some test results absolutely null and void because they couldn't even be processed in 7 days. That's why it's peaking there. So the only reason it's peaking so late, right to coincide with the beginning of the school year, which is the reason they're citing to keep kids out of school, is because of decisions they made. I mean, that is like idiocy squared.
100%. And as I said, look, you want to know when the only person who knows exactly when the border is going to open in Western Australia is Scott Morrison, because when he calls a date for an election, magically 1 month earlier than that is when it's going to open. Now, there will be some telepathic moment, because then 0 cases becomes 200, 300, and guess who Western Australian Labor will blame for all of this COVID? The bloke with 11 of the 15 seats in Western Australia. Just saying. I know how I can call the plays, whether you like them or not. I'm telling you what's going on behind the scenes, whether they'll admit it or not. All right.